Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever walked into a room and felt invisible, like no matter how hard you try, people just don't notice you, don't connect with you, don't remember you, and then someone else walks in. No louder, no richer, no more perfect, but suddenly all eyes are on them. People lean in, they listen, they smile, they feel something. Have you ever wondered, what is that magic? I will tell you the truth. It is not beauty. It is not money. It is not status. It is something far more powerful. Today I'm going to talk about 11 social skills that make people chase you. Most of us think that attractiveness comes from the way we look, or the kind of purse that we carry, or maybe our status. Okay, the kind of people we move in. It's a very conventional idea of attractiveness, according to me. And the new definition of attractiveness is the way you behave, or the way you talk, or the best of all, the way you make people feel around you. It is your social energy, your behavior, the way you make people feel. Social skills that make you attractive. And before we begin, please, if you like my videos, like, subscribe, and share my video. Now let me take you into a story before I explain 11 points. There was a girl, quiet, observant, always standing in the corner of every gathering. She believed she was not interesting enough. She believed people would never choose her. One day, she decided something different. She said, "If I cannot be the loudest voice in the room, I will become the warmest presence in the room." That day, everything changed. She didn't try to impress. She didn't try to prove. She simply started to connect. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready, because I'm about to share some powerful points that can truly transform the way people see you and how you connect with the world. Stay with me till the very end, because what comes next could change everything about your social confidence and presence. Master the thank you. Accept compliments gracefully without deflecting. Makes you appear confident and appreciative. Example, instead of "it was nothing," say, "Thank you. I really appreciate that." In today's world where people are constantly seeking validation through screens, likes, and comments, something as simple as receiving a compliment has quietly become a challenge. We live in a time where confidence is often confused with arrogance, and humility is misunderstood as self-rejection. In this noise, one small habit can change how people see you and how you see yourself, and that is the ability to simply say thank you. Let me tell you a story. There was a young woman working in an office who had spent days preparing a presentation. She worked late nights, doubted herself multiple times, and still showed up with courage. After the meeting, her manager looked at her and said, "That was an excellent presentation." Now, this was her moment. But instead of owning it, she smiled awkwardly and replied, "Oh, it was nothing. I just got lucky." The manager nodded, but something shifted. The appreciation he offered was gently pushed away. It was as if she did not believe in her own effort, and in that moment, neither could he fully celebrate it with her. Now imagine the same situation, but with a different response. The manager says, "That was an excellent presentation," and she looks him in the eye, smiles warmly, and says, "Thank you, I really appreciate that. Nothing more, nothing less." In that simple response, she accepts not just the compliment, but her own hard work. She allows the other person to feel good about appreciating her, and she strengthens a connection without even trying. This is the quiet power of mastering thank you. When you deflect a compliment, you are not being humble, you are denying your own worth. You are also unknowingly rejecting the kindness someone offered you. Every compliment is a small gift, and when you say, "It was nothing," you are returning that gift unopened. But when you accept it gracefully, you honor both yourself and the person in front of you. In today's fast-moving world, people rarely pause to appreciate others. When they do, it carries weight. Learning to receive that appreciation with dignity shows emotional strength. It tells people that you are comfortable in your own skin, that you recognize your value without needing to prove it loudly. This kind of confidence is rare, and that is what makes it attractive. There was once a student who was always praised for her creativity, but she would laugh it off every single time. One day her teacher told her, "The moment you start accepting your gifts is the moment the world will start taking them seriously." That sentence stayed with her. Slowly, she began to respond differently. She began to say thank you, and over time, not only did others respect her more, she started respecting herself too. So the next time someone appreciates you, pause for a second. Do not rush to hide behind excuses or downplay your effort. Look at them, smile, and say thank you. That simple act is not just good manners, it is a statement. It says, you know your worth, you accept kindness, and you are ready to stand in your own light without fear. 2. Grant people the grace of a good story. Assume good intentions in others' actions. Avoid making negative assumptions. Builds emotional peace and reduces overthinking. In today's fast and hyper-connected world, we are constantly receiving messages, notifications, short replies, and incomplete conversations. And somewhere in between those few words, our mind starts creating stories. Not always true stories, but stories filled with doubt, fear, and assumption. This is where one powerful social skill can change your life completely, and that is learning to give people the grace of a good story. There was a young man who had recently joined a new company. He was eager to prove himself, working hard on every task given to him. One day, after putting in hours of effort, he sent a detailed report to his manager. Within a short time, he received a reply. Just 3 words. "We'll review later." That was it. No smile, no appreciation, no feedback. His heart sank. His mind started racing. He thought maybe the report was not good enough. Maybe the manager was disappointed. Maybe he had already failed. For the rest of the day, he could not focus. His energy dropped, his confidence weakened, and all because of a story he created in his own mind. Now, let's pause and look at another possibility. What if the manager was in back-to-back meetings, overwhelmed with deadlines, and still took a moment to acknowledge receiving the report? What if those 3 words were not a sign of rejection, but a sign of responsibility? The reality is, we rarely have the full picture, yet we behave as if our assumptions are facts. This is the challenge of today's world. We are reacting to fragments instead of understanding the whole. We judge tone from text, intention from silence, and attitude from delays. And most of the time, we choose the negative version of the story because our mind is wired to protect us from hurt. But in doing so, we create unnecessary stress for ourselves. There was a woman who often felt ignored by her friend because the friend would reply late or sometimes just send a short message. She started distancing herself, believing that the friendship was fading. One day, she finally gathered the courage to ask what was wrong. Her friend broke down and shared that she had been dealing with family issues and emotional stress, and replying at all was an effort. In that moment, the entire story changed. What she once saw as carelessness was actually quiet struggle. When you give people the grace of a good story, you are not being naive, you are being wise. You are choosing peace over panic, understanding over judgment. You are allowing space for humanity, for imperfection, for unseen battles. This does not just improve your relationships, it protects your mental well-being. In a world where misunderstandings are just one message away, this skill becomes your strength. The next time someone is late, distant, or brief in their response, pause before you react. Ask yourself, what is the kindest explanation I can give to this situation? That single shift can save you from hours of overthinking and unnecessary pain. It allows you to move through life with calmness, with trust, and with emotional maturity that truly makes you stand out. 3. Make people the hero of their own decisions. Ask questions to guide others to their own solutions, empowers them and shows respect for their intelligence. In today's world where everyone is quick to give advice, quick to judge, and even quicker to tell others what they should do, one rare and powerful skill can instantly set you apart. That is the ability to step back and allow people to become the hero of their own decisions. It sounds simple, but in reality, it requires patience, emotional intelligence, and a deep respect for others. Let me share a story. There was a young woman who felt stuck in her career. She had a stable job, a good salary, but no sense of purpose. One evening, she sat down with her friend and poured her heart out. She expected guidance, maybe even a clear answer. Now, most people in that situation would jump in with advice. They would say, leave your job, follow your passion, or stay where you are. Be practical. But her friend did something different. He listened quietly and then asked her a simple question. What is the one thing you do that makes you lose track of time? She paused. No one had asked her that before. She began to think. Not about fear, not about society, but about herself. She spoke slowly, discovering her own thoughts as she answered. That conversation did not give her a ready-made solution, but it gave her clarity. Over the next few weeks, she made decisions that felt right to her, not because someone told her to, but because she found the answers within herself. This is the power of asking instead of telling. When you give advice too quickly, you may feel helpful, but you often take away someone's ownership of the decision. They might follow your suggestion, but deep inside, they remain unsure. And if things go wrong, they may even blame you. But when you guide them with thoughtful questions, you help them build their own understanding. And what people build themselves, they value deeply. Think about it. When someone constructs something with their own effort, whether it is a small piece of furniture or a life decision, they feel connected to it. They protect it, they believe in it, and they commit to it. The same applies to choices. A decision discovered through self-reflection carries more weight than a decision handed over by someone else. There was a manager in a company who noticed that his team often came to him for solutions. Instead of giving direct answers, he started asking questions. What do you think is the best approach? What options have you considered? What could be the possible outcome? At first, the team felt confused, even frustrated. But slowly, something changed. They became more confident, more independent, and more creative. They stopped fearing mistakes because they trusted their own thinking. The manager did not just solve problems, he built problem solvers. In today's time, where people are overwhelmed with opinions from social media, friends, and family, giving someone the space to think is a gift. It shows that you trust their intelligence, it shows that you respect their journey, and most importantly, it helps them grow. So the next time someone comes to you with a problem, resist the urge to become the hero of their story. Instead, become the guide who helps them find their own path. Ask questions that open their mind, listen without interrupting, and watch how they rise to their own answers. That is how you create not just stronger relationships, but stronger individuals. 4. Be a safe harbor for people's ambitions. Listen to ideas and dreams without judgment or unsolicited advice. Provide a safe space for risk-taking and creativity. Builds trust and psychological safety. In today's world, people are full of ideas but empty of safe spaces. Everyone has a dream, a plan, a vision they are quietly carrying, but very few have the courage to speak it out loud. Not because the dream is weak, but because the fear of judgment is strong. This is where one rare social skill can make you unforgettable, and that is becoming a safe harbor for someone's ambition. There was a young boy who dreamed of becoming a content creator. He would spend hours watching videos, learning editing, imagining his own channel. One evening, he finally gathered the courage to share this with his family. Before he could even finish, someone laughed and said it was not a real career. Another person warned him about failure and competition. In a matter of minutes, his excitement turned into silence. The dream did not die that day, but it went into hiding. Now imagine if just one person in that room had responded differently. Someone who looked at him and said, "Tell me more about what you want to create." Someone who asked, "What kind of videos excite you the most?" That one person would not just be listening, they would be protecting a fragile idea, and sometimes that is all it takes for a dream to survive. In today's time, people are constantly exposed to criticism. Social media has made it easy for everyone to have an opinion, and most of those opinions are quick, harsh, and unfiltered. Because of this, people become defensive. They stop sharing their ideas, they start doubting themselves, and slowly they shrink. But when you become a safe space, you offer something that is rare. You offer acceptance without interruption, curiosity without judgment. There was a woman who always had a passion for writing but never believed she was good enough. Whenever she mentioned it, people would advise her to focus on something more practical. One day, she met a colleague who listened differently. Instead of correcting her, he simply asked what kind of stories she wanted to tell. For the first time, she spoke without fear. Weeks later, she started writing regularly. Months later, she shared her work publicly. The difference was not talent, the difference was environment. Being a safe harbor does not mean you agree with everything. It means you respect the courage it takes for someone to share something personal. It means you understand that every idea starts as something small and uncertain. When you interrupt it with doubt, you weaken it. But when you give it space, you allow it to grow. Trust is not built through big gestures. It is built in these quiet moments where someone feels heard instead of judged. When people know they can come to you without fear of being dismissed, they open up, they share honestly, they think freely, and they begin to associate your presence with comfort and possibility. In a world that constantly questions people's choices, be the one who listens with patience. Let your presence say, "You are safe here, your ideas matter here." Because sometimes the greatest thing you can do for someone is not to guide them or correct them, but simply to give their dream a place where it can breathe without fear. 5. Embrace your idiosyncrasies. Accept and showcase your unique quirks. People are attracted to authenticity, not perfection. In today's world, we are constantly told to fit in, to look a certain way, speak a certain way, behave in a way that is accepted by everyone. Social media shows us polished lives, perfect faces, flawless personalities, and somewhere in between, we begin to believe that our uniqueness is a flaw that needs to be hidden. But the truth is very different. What makes you different is exactly what makes you memorable. There was a young girl who always felt out of place. She laughed a little louder than others, spoke with unusual expressions, and often said things without filtering them too much. In school, people would tease her, calling her strange and unpredictable. Over time, she started observing herself too closely. She tried to control her laughter, tried to speak less, tried to become what she thought people would accept. But the more she tried to be perfect, the more she felt invisible. Years later, she joined a new environment where she decided to stop pretending. She allowed herself to be the same person she used to be. She laughed freely, shared her thoughts honestly, and embraced her natural way of being. Something unexpected happened. People started noticing her, not for being perfect, but for being real. They felt comfortable around her because she did not try to impress. She made them feel that they could also be themselves. In today's time, perfection has become an illusion that everyone is chasing. filters, edits, rehearsed conversations, carefully curated personalities. But deep down, people are not looking for perfection. They are looking for connection. And connection is built through authenticity. When you show your real self, including your small quirks and imperfections, you give others permission to drop their masks as well. There is something interesting about human behavior. When someone appears flawless, it can create distance. People admire them, but they do not always relate to them. But when someone shows a small imperfection, something human, something unpolished, it creates warmth. It makes them approachable. It makes them real. A small mistake, a clumsy moment, an unusual habit can actually make you more likable because it breaks the image of perfection and replaces it with authenticity. There was a speaker who was known for delivering powerful talks. One day, during an important presentation, he accidentally spilled water while speaking. For a moment, there was silence. He paused, smiled at himself, and continued as if nothing had happened. Instead of losing respect, the audience connected with him even more. They saw not just a speaker, but a human being. That moment stayed with them longer than the speech itself. In a world where everyone is trying so hard to be perfect, choosing to be yourself is an act of courage. Your quirks, your habits, your way of expressing, these are not weaknesses. They are your identity. The more you accept them, the more natural you become. And people are drawn to what feels natural, not what feels forced. So instead of hiding what makes you different, start owning it. Let your uniqueness be seen, because at the end of the day, people may forget perfection, but they always remember someone who was unapologetically real. 6. Own your value without flaunting achievements. Be aware of your skills and accomplishments, but don't brag. Let your value be discovered naturally through actions. In today's world, where every achievement is instantly posted, every success is announced, and every milestone is displayed for validation, it has become easy to confuse visibility with value. We are surrounded by constant noise of comparison, where people feel the need to prove themselves again and again. But there is a different kind of power, a quieter one, and that is the ability to know your worth without announcing it to the world. There was a young professional who had recently achieved something significant in her career. She had worked tirelessly, sacrificed her time, and finally reached a position she once only dreamed of. In every gathering, she found ways to bring it up. She would mention her success casually but repeatedly. At first, people congratulated her, but slowly something changed. Conversations became shorter, people stopped engaging deeply, and there was an invisible distance forming. It was not her success that pushed people away, it was the constant need to highlight it. Now imagine another person in the same situation. He had achieved just as much, if not more, but he never spoke about it unless someone directly asked. In conversations, he focused on others, listened carefully, and contributed thoughtfully. When people eventually discovered his accomplishments, they were not only impressed, they were genuinely drawn to him. There was a sense of respect that came naturally, without him asking for it. This is the difference between loud confidence and quiet confidence. Loud confidence seeks validation. It wants to be seen and acknowledged constantly. Quiet confidence, on the other hand, is rooted in self-awareness. It does not need approval because it already knows its value. In today's competitive environment, this quality stands out because it removes the feeling of rivalry. People do not feel the need to compete with you, they feel comfortable around you. There was a manager in an organization who was highly skilled and experienced. He had every reason to dominate conversations and assert his authority, but he chose a different approach. In meetings, he would listen more than he spoke. When others shared ideas, he would encourage them instead of correcting them immediately. Over time, his team began to trust him deeply. They saw his capability not through his words, but through his actions and decisions. His presence brought calmness instead of pressure. When you constantly talk about your achievements, you leave no space for curiosity. People feel like they already know everything about you, but when you allow your value to unfold naturally, it creates a sense of intrigue. People want to know more, they observe you more closely, and they appreciate you more deeply. In a world driven by comparison, choosing quiet confidence is not easy. It requires you to let go of the need for external validation. It requires you to trust that your work will speak for itself. And when it does, the respect you receive is far more genuine and lasting. So instead of trying to prove your worth in every conversation, focus on being present, being authentic, and letting your actions reflect who you are. Because true value does not need to be announced, it is felt, it is recognized, and it is remembered long after the conversation ends. 7. Be a plus, not a minus. Contribute positive energy to interactions. Avoid chronic complaining, gossip, or negativity. In today's world, people are not just tired physically, they are exhausted emotionally. Every day begins with news, pressure, expectations, and comparisons. By the time they step into a room, whether it is an office, a gathering, or even a simple conversation, they are already carrying a weight inside them. In such a world, the kind of energy you bring into a space matters more than you realize. There was a man in an office who was known for one thing. No matter what the situation was, he always found something to complain about. If the workload was high, he complained. If the work was easy, he said it was boring. If the weather was good, he found a flaw in it. Slowly, people started avoiding sitting near him. Meetings with him felt heavier, longer, and more draining. It was not his work that pushed people away. It was the energy he carried. Now imagine another person in the same office. She was not pretending to be happy all the time. She had her own struggles, her own pressures, but she made a conscious choice. Whenever she joined a conversation, she tried to add something positive. She would ask others what went well in their day. She would appreciate small efforts, acknowledge progress, and sometimes just listen with a calm presence. Over time, people started gravitating towards her, not because she was perfect, but because she made them feel lighter. In today's fast-paced life, negativity spreads quickly. One complaint leads to another, one piece of gossip creates more doubt, and before you realize, the entire environment becomes heavy. People may not say it directly, but they begin to associate that heaviness with the person who brings it. This is why being a plus, someone who adds value to a moment, becomes such a powerful quality. There was a group of friends who would meet every week. Initially, their conversations were filled with laughter and shared stories. But gradually, the meetings turned into sessions of complaining about work, criticizing others, and focusing on everything that was going wrong. One day, one person in the group decided to change the direction. Instead of joining the complaints, she asked a simple question. What is one good thing that happened to you this week? At first, there was silence. Then someone shared something small. Another followed, and slowly the energy shifted. The same group, the same people, but a completely different feeling. This is how emotional energy works. It spreads without effort. When you bring negativity, it multiplies. When you bring positivity, it also multiplies. You do not have to be overly cheerful or unrealistic. You just have to be mindful of what you are contributing. Are you adding weight or are you lifting it? In today's challenging times, people are drawn to those who make them feel safe, calm, and hopeful. They remember the person who made them smile after a long day, the person who listened without judgment, the person who chose not to add more stress to an already stressful moment. So before you speak, before you react, pause for a moment and ask yourself what you are about to bring into this interaction, because your presence is not neutral, it either adds or takes away. And when you consistently choose to be a plus, you become someone people naturally want to be around, not because you are trying to impress them, but because you make their world feel a little lighter. 8. Make others feel seen. Shift focus from yourself to others. Ask thoughtful follow-up questions. Remember small details. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's world, everyone is speaking, but very few are truly listening. Conversations have become faster, shorter, and often centered around one question: what can I say next? We are surrounded by people, yet many feel unseen, unheard, and unimportant. In such a world, one simple ability can make you deeply attractive, and that is the ability to make others feel seen. There was a young man who attended many social gatherings, but always left feeling empty. He would introduce himself, talk about his work, share his opinions, but somehow the connections never lasted. People would smile, nod, and move on. One day, he observed someone else at the same event. This person was not the loudest, not the most impressive by appearance, yet people kept coming back to talk to him. Curious, he paid attention to what was different. He noticed that this person asked questions, but not the usual surface-level questions. When someone mentioned their work, he would ask what part of it they enjoyed the most. When someone spoke about their family, he would remember a small detail and bring it up later. He listened without interrupting, without rushing to share his own story. And something powerful happened. People opened up. They smiled more. They stayed longer in conversations. In today's time, people are constantly looking for validation. Social media has made it easy to display our lives, but it has also created a deeper craving to be acknowledged beyond the screen. When you give someone your full attention, when you genuinely listen, you are offering something rare. You are telling them without words that they matter. There was a woman who met a colleague briefly at a meeting. During that conversation, the colleague mentioned her dog in passing. Weeks later, when they met again, the woman asked, "How is your dog doing now?" It was a small question, but it had a big impact. The colleague was surprised. Out of all the conversations she had, someone remembered something so small. That moment created a connection that no long speech could have built. This is the power of attention to detail. It shows that you are not just hearing words, you are valuing the person behind those words. In a world full of distractions, giving someone your presence is one of the greatest forms of respect. Many people enter conversations with the intention of being interesting, but truly attractive people enter conversations with the intention of being interested. They shift the focus from themselves to others. They do not rush to impress. They take time to understand. And in doing so, they create a space where others feel comfortable being themselves. There was a teacher who made every student feel special, not by giving long lectures, but by remembering their names, their interests, and their struggles. Years later, students did not just remember the subject she taught, they remembered how she made them feel. That is the kind of impact that stays. In today's challenging and distracted world, people are not looking for perfect words. They are looking for genuine attention. When you listen deeply, ask thoughtful questions, and remember the small details, you give people a feeling they rarely experience. And that feeling is what makes you unforgettable in their lives. 9. Protect peace by maintaining strong boundaries. Say no respectfully. Don't be a people pleaser. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's world, being available all the time has become a silent pressure. Messages must be answered instantly, favors must be accepted immediately, and saying no is often seen as rude or selfish. In trying to be liked, many people slowly lose something far more important, and that is their peace. This is where a powerful social skill comes into play. the ability to maintain strong and respectful boundaries. There was a young woman who was known as the most helpful person in her workplace. Whenever someone needed assistance, she would say yes without hesitation. At first, people appreciated her kindness, but gradually, something changed. Tasks that were not her responsibility started coming her way. Late hours became normal. Her own work began to suffer, and yet she continued saying yes because she feared disappointing others. Inside, she felt exhausted and unappreciated, but on the outside, she kept smiling. One evening, she stayed back again to help a colleague while her own plans were cancelled for the third time that week. As she sat there tired and frustrated, she realized something important. People were not intentionally taking advantage of her, they were simply following the pattern she had created. By never saying no, she had taught others that her time and energy were always available. The next time a similar situation arose, she responded differently. When a colleague asked for last-minute help, she paused and said calmly that she understood the urgency but would not be able to stay late that day due to a prior commitment. She also offered to assist the next morning. There was a brief silence, but something unexpected happened. The colleague nodded and respected her decision. The world did not collapse, the relationship did not break, and for the first time she felt a sense of control over her own time. In today's fast-paced environment, people often confuse boundaries with rejection. But boundaries are not about pushing people away, they are about protecting what matters to you. When you say yes to everything, you slowly say no to yourself. Your energy gets divided, your focus weakens, and over time, resentment begins to build. You may continue helping others, but internally, you feel drained and unfulfilled. There was a man who struggled with the same issue in his personal life. Friends would often call him at inconvenient times, expecting him to be available. He would cancel his own plans just to keep everyone happy. One day, he decided to set a simple boundary. He informed his friends that after a certain time in the evening, he would not be available unless it was urgent. At first, it felt uncomfortable, but gradually, people adjusted. They began to respect his time because he had shown that it mattered. Strong boundaries communicate self-respect. They tell others that you value your time, your energy, and your priorities. And when you respect yourself, others learn to do the same. It does not require harsh words or conflict. It requires clarity and calmness. In today's demanding world, protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. When you maintain healthy boundaries, you show up as a better version of yourself, more present, more focused, and more genuine. And that is what truly strengthens relationships, not constant availability, but balanced and respectful connection. 10. Celebrate other people's wins. Genuinely radiate genuine joy for others' successes. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's fast-paced world, disagreements are inevitable. Whether in professional meetings, social circles, or even family discussions, differing opinions emerge constantly, and the way we handle them defines our relationships and influence. Disagreeing without being disagreeable is a skill that is often overlooked, yet it is one of the most powerful tools for maintaining respect and fostering collaboration. In an era where social tensions run high and conversations can quickly escalate online or offline, mastering this skill is not just valuable, it is essential. There was a young woman named Sarah who had recently joined a marketing team in a competitive corporate environment. In a brainstorming session, her colleague presented a strategy she believed was ineffective. Her first instinct was to counter strongly, but she noticed the tension in the room and decided to respond differently. She began by acknowledging her colleague's effort, saying, "I really appreciate the work you've put into this approach. It's clear you've considered the target audience carefully." Then she added her perspective. Building on that, What if we also explore this alternative that could complement your strategy? The response shifted the energy in the room. Her colleague did not feel attacked. Instead, he became open to discussion, and the team collaboratively refined the strategy. By validating the other person's point first, Sarah avoided defensiveness and opened the door to cooperation. This approach demonstrates that disagreement does not have to come with conflict. It can become a bridge to better ideas. In today's social landscape, online debates are often harsh and polarized. People immediately jump to counterpoints, dismissing others' views entirely. This approach creates division and frustration. On the other hand, when you approach disagreement with respect and empathy, you encourage dialogue and mutual understanding. A small business owner I know, Bilal, experienced this when negotiating with a supplier over costs. Instead of rejecting the supplier's proposal outright, he acknowledged their constraints and explained his perspective calmly, offering a compromise. The result was a stronger partnership rather than tension, proving that disagreeing thoughtfully can strengthen trust and collaboration. Disagreeing without being disagreeable also requires self-awareness and emotional control. It means resisting the urge to dominate conversations or assert superiority, focusing instead on shared goals and solutions. By framing your perspective as an addition rather than a replacement, you invite others into a joint problem-solving space. Over time, people notice that you can express strong opinions without creating hostility, and they naturally seek your input because they trust you to handle differences gracefully. In a world full of competing voices, this skill has a ripple effect. Teams become more cohesive, friendships endure challenges, and professional networks expand because people feel respected and heard. By validating before offering alternatives, disagreements transform from obstacles into opportunities for connection, creativity, and influence. It is a subtle art, but those who master it become magnetic in their interactions, earning respect and inspiring cooperation. The ability to disagree without being disagreeable is not just a communication tactic, it is a mindset that aligns with the demands of today's complex social and professional environments. When you practice this skill consistently, you reduce unnecessary conflict, elevate discussions, and create relationships where differences are celebrated, not feared, and where collaboration naturally thrives. 11. Disagree without being disagreeable. Validate the other person's point before adding your perspective. Avoids confrontation and triggers collaboration instead of defensiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's fast-paced world, disagreements are inevitable. Whether in professional meetings, social circles, or even family discussions, differing opinions emerge constantly, and the way we handle them defines our relationships and influence. Disagreeing without being disagreeable is a skill that is often overlooked, yet it is one of the most powerful tools for maintaining respect and fostering collaboration. In an era where social tensions run high and conversations can quickly escalate online or offline, mastering this skill is not just valuable, it is essential. There was a young woman named Sarah who had recently joined a marketing team in a competitive corporate environment. In a brainstorming session, her colleague presented a strategy she believed was ineffective. Her first instinct was to counter strongly, but she noticed the tension in the room and decided to respond differently. She began by acknowledging her colleague's effort, saying, "I really appreciate the work you've put into this approach. It's clear you've considered the target audience carefully." Then she added her perspective. "Building on that, what if we also explore this alternative that could complement your strategy?" The response shifted the energy in the room. Her colleague did not feel attacked. Instead, he became open to discussion, and the team collaboratively refined the strategy. By validating the other person's point first, Sarah avoided defensiveness and opened the door to cooperation. This approach demonstrates that disagreement does not have to come with conflict. it can become a bridge to better ideas. In today's social landscape, online debates are often harsh and polarized. People immediately jump to counterpoints, dismissing others' views entirely. This approach creates division and frustration. On the other hand, when you approach disagreement with respect and empathy, you encourage dialogue and mutual understanding. A small business owner I know, Bilal, experienced this when negotiating with a supplier over costs. Instead of rejecting the supplier's proposal outright, he acknowledged their constraints and explained his perspective calmly, offering a compromise. The result was a stronger partnership rather than tension, proving that disagreeing thoughtfully can strengthen trust and collaboration. Disagreeing without being disagreeable also requires self-awareness and emotional control. It means resisting the urge to dominate conversations or assert superiority, focusing instead on shared goals and solutions. By framing your perspective as an addition rather than a replacement, you invite others into a joint problem-solving space. Over time, people notice that you can express strong opinions without creating hostility, and they naturally seek your input because they trust you to handle differences gracefully. In a world full of competing voices, this skill has a ripple effect. Teams become more cohesive, friendships endure challenges, and professional networks expand because people feel respected and heard. By validating before offering alternatives, disagreements transform from obstacles into opportunities for connection, creativity, and influence. It is a subtle art, but those who master it become magnetic in their interactions, earning respect and inspiring cooperation. The ability to disagree without being disagreeable is not just a communication tactic, it is a mindset that aligns with the demands of today's complex social and professional environments. When you practice this skill consistently, you reduce unnecessary conflict, elevate discussions, and create relationships where differences are celebrated, not feared, and where collaboration naturally thrives. Share imperfections and light self-deprecating stories. Makes you approachable. Make clean, confident exits from conversations to leave a positive impression. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's world where social interactions are often filtered through screens and curated images, connecting authentically with people has become more challenging than ever. We live in an age of comparison and perfection, where everyone seems to showcase only their achievements and highlights. In this environment, sharing your imperfections and light self-deprecating stories can be a powerful tool to make yourself approachable and relatable. A young man named Ahmed, for instance, joined a networking event full of seasoned professionals. Nervous and unsure, he started by joking about his own awkward habit of always misplacing his notes during presentations. Instead of being judged, people smiled, laughed, and immediately felt a connection with him. His honesty and humor broke barriers and opened doors to conversations that would have otherwise been intimidating. Sharing imperfections does not mean undermining your value, it means humanizing yourself. In professional and social settings alike, people are drawn to those who show confidence without arrogance. When Muniba Mazari speaks about her journey, she often shares moments of struggle, mistakes she made, and how she overcame them. These stories are not just inspiring, they build trust and make her audience feel that they are not alone in their challenges. When you share a lighthearted story about your own flaws, you demonstrate humility and resilience, which makes interactions more memorable and genuine. Equally important is knowing how to exit conversations gracefully. In today's busy world, people are juggling multiple priorities, and leaving a positive impression is often about the way you conclude your interactions. A friend of mine, Sarah, attended a workshop where she met several influential attendees. Instead of lingering awkwardly or cutting conversations short abruptly, she practiced clean and confident exits. She would thank the person for their time, mention something she genuinely enjoyed about the discussion, and politely move on to the next conversation. This left everyone feeling valued and respected, and she found that people remembered her more favorably and were eager to reconnect later. Clean exits require awareness and empathy. It is not just about leaving a conversation, but leaving a lasting impression that feels positive for both parties. By combining approachable stories with confident exits, you create interactions that are warm, authentic, and memorable. You become someone people enjoy talking to, someone they feel comfortable around, and someone whose presence adds value rather than pressure. In a time when social anxiety, digital fatigue, and constant comparison make human connection difficult, these small yet powerful habits can transform your interactions. Sharing imperfections invites relatability and trust, while graceful exits ensure people leave the interaction with positive feelings. Together, they help you navigate today's complex social landscape with charm, authenticity, and respect. When applied consistently, these approaches not only make you more attractive in the eyes of others but also allow you to engage with confidence and empathy, turning ordinary interactions into meaningful connections. Ladies and gentlemen, if you found these tips helpful and want to transform the way you connect with people in today's fast-paced world, make sure to put them into practice every day. Remember, social skills are not about perfection. They are about authenticity, empathy, and leaving a lasting positive impression. If you liked this video and want more motivational insights and practical strategies to become confident, attractive, and influential in your social life, please like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Stay inspired, keep growing, and remember that every small change you make in how you interact can create a ripple effect of positivity in your life and the lives of others.